We have finally made it. We're at our last targeted piece that we have, that we get to dive deep into Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. We have spent this whole summer, we've called it the Summer on the Mount. We have walked through the beginning of Matthew chapter 5, through all of those amazing red letters, all the way in Matthew chapter 7, covering his entire sermon, some of the most powerful, beautiful, and rich teachings that we have from Jesus in the whole Bible.
We've sat with the Beatitudes where Jesus flipped the world's values upside down. We said, blessed are the poor in spirit, the meek, the peacemakers. We've heard the instructions to be the salt and the light, to love our enemies, to forgive, to give quietly, to pray sincerely, to trust God over every worry, to treat others the way we want to be treated, and to choose the narrow road even though it's harder.
How many of you guys have been with us the whole or most of the summer? You've walked through this series with us. Okay, then you know these are not just motivational teachings. These are things Jesus has demanded from us. He has set a new standard. He's given us this vision of the kingdom of heaven, and he has said, this is how you actively live this out in real time.
So next week, Matt will walk us through the recap of everything we've learned this summer, and then on August 31st, we'll close out the series with a panel of the entire teaching team where we'll reflect on the series and answer the questions you've submitted. Next Sunday is your last opportunity to answer any questions. If you want, there's a QR code that'll be up on the screen. You're welcome to add any questions you have about any of the pieces of the Sermon on the Mount, and then we will answer those questions as well as reflect on things. But before we wrap up our time on the Sermon on the Mount, we want to give this moment the weight it deserves, because Jesus does not end his sermon with a polite summary. He ends it with a warning and a choice.
We've got this story. It's got two different people, two houses, one storm, and two completely different endings. So as you can see, today you have not one, but two teaching team members. Because I'm Rachel, this is Aaron. We are very committed to making sure that both sides of this story are represented so that we can learn everything that Jesus intends for us to glean from this very powerful parable he has here at the end of chapter 7.
So let's ask the question that Jesus is really putting before us in the last part of this sermon is, what are you building on?
So if you want to go with us, we're at the end of Matthew chapter 7. We're going to be in verse 24. It's just a very short parable that we're going to be diving into today. And Matt talked last week about the word therefore, and this is what Jesus starts with. He says, therefore, meaning everything I've taught you this whole summer, all of the things that I have said, because those things are true, this next thing is true. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash.
You know, Rachel, the first thing that hits me in this passage is that both people are builders. Mm-hmm. It's not the wise versus the lazy, or the two people working, one person working and one not. It's two people working, investing, planning, building, and that's all of us. The reality is everyone is building something. We all are. You may not think of your life that way, but every decision, every habit, every thought, every relationship, it's a brick. You're building a career, a reputation, a marriage, a legacy, a spiritual foundation. The question isn't if you're building. The question is, what are you building on? I once had a student, when I was a teacher back in the day, I had this science lesson where we would use a wind tunnel to help them understand the value of structure and engineering and things like that. And a young lady brought in a project one day, and the project was just build a structure that could withstand the wind. And she brought in this beautiful tall tower, sparkly and glitter and all kinds of beautiful designs made of paper. And it was carefully folded and taped and decorated, colorful markers everywhere. It was just a piece of artwork, really. She was beaming with pride, and she set it on the table right in front of the wind tunnel. You You could tell she had poured hours into the details. Then came the test. We switched on the fan, and with just a small gust of air, the whole thing wobbled, shook, and collapsed flat on the table, and she was crushed. Next up was a student who might not always expect the highest level of work from. His tower was nothing to look at, just rough cardboard held together with big strips of duct tape, no paint, no glitter, no design. Honestly, it looked like he threw it together that morning in the garage from whatever he could find laying on the ground. But when the same wind hit it, it didn't flinch. It stood solid. And standing there watching both towers, I couldn't help but think Jesus is reminding us of the same thing in this story. It doesn't matter how pretty the structure looks. If the foundation and framework can't hold, what you build your house on matters far more than how it looks to the outside world.
And Jesus said, that's a perfect analogy. Jesus said at the beginning of this that a wise builder is going to listen to his words and then put them into practice. They're going to follow what he says. Has anyone in this room ever ordered furniture from IKEA? Okay, have you ever tried to put together that furniture? So, for the convenience of mailing it to you, the cost of that is that they come in the most minuscule pieces that it could possibly come in, to the point of you can't really identify what is what part of the furniture. Have you ever tried to put together an IKEA piece of furniture without the instructions? Okay, yeah, not the move, because you're going to put together something that doesn't even look like the thing you ordered, because it is so hard to do that without the instructions. I was at a friend's house for dinner one time, and we were just sitting there and, had one of those kind of, I don't know if it was from IKEA, but the chair I was sitting in, we're having this really just normal conversation, normal dinner, and then the chair explodes out from under me, and I go under the dinner table. It's a true story. It was I don't know why I was embarrassed, but I was. It was very embarrassing. And I don't know who put the chair together, but I have some suspicions that there were some corners cut when it came to the instructions.
Now, I just want to point out one thing very quickly. I fall down on the chair, it's Erin's fault. She falls down on the chair, it was the instructions that weren't followed, right?
Yes, definitely the chair's fault. So if you are actively trying to put together your life, you want to have something that fits a beautiful design. If you want it to be lasting and be able to bear up under the weight of more than just a person, under the weight of eternity, that's what we want for the structure that is our life, then you have to remember that a wise builder follows the designer. Now, when I say designer, who are we talking about? Jesus. Yes, Jesus is Lord of all. He has a design. He has a plan. He has a purpose that we want to walk in. We want to live into the fullness of what he's building us up to be. And if we try to freestyle that and do it without the instructions, how well do you think that's going to work out for us? Not so great. And it's not about simply believing that his plan is good, although that is the starting point. We have to start and believe he's the designer. His ways are higher than mine. His will is good. His plan for me is good. I want that. So we start with that belief, but that belief has to be so strong that it drives us into actively practicing what he says and allowing his will to come to pass in our lives. And this is called obedience. It's a very simple word of just hear and do. What we hear, we believe is good, we believe is right. And so we do it. And this is that active participation in what Jesus prayed. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And we then begin to embody that will. We actively practice that will, and we are doing it using the means and the methods and the materials given to us by Jesus to accomplish these things. We're not taking shortcuts. We're using his way, even though sometimes those things are more expensive. It comes at a cost for us. They're heavier. There's a learning curve to operating in our spiritual gifts. So sometimes it feels easier to skip his methodology and his means and try to do it our way. But we know that his way is better. We want the product that he has in mind in the end. And in Proverbs chapter 3, it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart And lean not into your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. This is the wisdom that says that following the designer's blueprint is going to get us a better result than we would get for ourselves every time.
So I think it's really clear, though, that if you don't follow the instructions, it's not going to turn out the way you want, and likely will not be able to hold up the way that it was promised it would, or
Right.
that it holds up for others.
Yep.
Now, before I say this next part, I have to make sure you can promise me that you won't laugh, especially my brother is not allowed to laugh at this, or my sister. But years ago, I joined a gym. I said no laughing. I was a principal at the time, and it was in Westland near my school. And I would go there early in the morning, and I would do my workout and shower there, and then go to my office around the corner. And a lot of people there were the same people you see every day. They kind of were on the same routine, coming to the gym every morning. We even hired the same personal trainer. He was there twice a week. We'd meet with him. He gave us identical plans, the same exercises, the same stretches, the same nutrition advice. I'd nod along, agree that it all made sense, even say things like, I'm really going to do it this time. But here's the truth. Outside those sessions, I didn't change much. My eating stayed the same. I skipped workouts when I got busy. I heard the plan. I knew what to do, but I didn't act on it. Others in the same gym, those people that were there every morning with me, they took the same advice I got and they worked with it. Rainy days, busy days, it didn't matter. They showed up, they followed the plan, they made it part of their life. We had the same trainer, the same words, the same resources, but after a few months, the results were night and day. It was more like a before and after picture with us. They were stronger, healthier, full of energy. I was still in the same place. That's exactly what Jesus is saying here. Two people can hear the exact same truth, but the difference isn't in the hearing, it's in the doing. One life stays the same, the other is transformed. We had the same trainer, the same plan, the same opportunity, but only one of us actually changed. James chapter 1, he says this, but be doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves. I was only deceiving myself when I did not follow the instructions. I wasn't out of shape because I didn't know what to do. I was stuck because I didn't do what I was supposed to do. Let's say that again. I wasn't out of shape because I didn't know what to do. I was stuck because I didn't do what I knew I should.
That is so good. The difference between head knowledge and it becoming an active part of our lives is it's just that much. It is just that much. And I love the gym analogy. It's so on point because if I want to change my life physically, if I want to see physical transformation, the number one thing required of me to do that is discipline. And in our spiritual walk, if we want to see spiritual transformation, build something good, make a good change, it is those daily disciplines that make all of the difference. That is what a solid spiritual life is built on. It's those small, unseen moments that we're faithful to show up and do and complete every single day, even when people aren't looking. And those are the things that become those big displays of God's glory in our life over time. But see, Aaron, I'm in the influencer generation, so we love our big displays of things. We love to be who we are very, very publicly and make sure everybody sees it on Instagram. So, when it comes to the gym, we wear our cute gym outfit and make sure we get our good selfie. And we do the same thing with our Bibles. We'll get our token scripture and set it up really aesthetic and, hashtag Bible study and put it out there. And we try to live our lives very publicly and be a good example and feel like we're doing all of the things and let other people see that we're accomplishing these things. And that's a beautiful thing, to be so bold, and I love our generation's commitment to being confident and living very publicly, being an example. But it is so important that our outward displays never outpace our quiet obedience. Because the root, that real obedience, the real change is happening in moments that no one will ever applaud you for. The transformation is happening when you show up in that quiet time with the Lord, or when you're saying no to secret sin that nobody would even know that you did. but you know, and you know God sees, and you're saying no. You're forgiving somebody. Nobody even knows you have a problem with that person, but you are releasing the charges that you have against them. You're changing a habit because of something that you read in Scripture that convicted you, and you said, you know what? I believe God's way is better. This is going to be hard for me, but I want to live different because of what he says. I want to reflect this. I want this to be my mirror more. You're taking time. You're investing in your prayer life. You're refusing to gossip, or you're releasing control of a situation that you have been trying so hard to manipulate to make better. You're finally trusting in God. These are the building blocks of a solid foundation. They are small. They are mundane. They are unseen. You don't get a lot of glory and praise, but this is where you become that wise builder who's just focused on building something that the Lord is calling you to, and you're doing it slowly, intentionally, and obediently.
So what I hear you're saying is that if I just carry my gym bag from my car to my office every day to try to make people think I go to the gym, nothing's going to happen. Is that what you're telling me?
I mean, if you put a lot of heavy stuff in the bag, it could work.
All right. Well, let's talk about myself, right? Let's talk about the foolish builder. I want you to know that a foolish builder builds quick, shiny, and shallow. Quick, shiny, and shallow. He builds fast. It looks good. People probably admire his house from miles away, but he didn't dig, he didn't build with depth, and it showed. I know this path. I've taken it. I've been there. I built parts of my life on performance, approval, image, success. I measured myself by what others think. And for a while, it worked. Things looked strong, but when the storm came, everything changed. Everything cracked and creaked. I thought my way would work. I thought I could build on what felt easy and comfortable. But Proverbs 14:12 warns us there's a way that seems right to a man, but as the end is death. My way felt right at the moment, but it was leading me towards collapse. And if I'm honest, a lot of what I built was for show. Jesus once spoke to the religious leaders in Matthew chapter 23, and he said, "Woe to you, for you are like whitewashed tombs, which outwardly appear beautiful, but within are full of dead people's bones and all uncleanness. So you outwardly appear righteous to others, but within you are full of hypocrisy and lawlessness." I was telling Rachel this morning, I was reflecting on the woman with the alabaster box who came into the room with Jesus, and all the religious leaders were there, and prominent people, Pharisees and the Sadducees and others. And they did not think the woman with the alabaster box belonged there. She did not deserve to be in Jesus' presence. But the reality was they were all there for prestige. They were there to say that they were with Jesus, to say that they were in the in crowd. Inside, they were hollow and shallow and full of rules and no relationship. While the woman with the alabaster box was broken and humble and realized that Jesus was the only foundation she could build her life upon. That was me. I kept the outside looking good so that no one would see how weak the inside really was. But a beautiful house on a bad foundation is still just a collapse waiting to happen. My strength wasn't real. My peace was temporary. My identity was shallow.
I identify with that so much. So much of your story and your testimony, and that hollowness that comes with trying to be someone who's very polished on the outside, but inside doesn't have that really rooted relationship with Christ. I was looking through one of my old prayer journals, which if you have prayer journals, go back and look at some of your old prayers. You can really see how much God has done in your life, and it's awesome. So remember to do that. But I went back and I was reading, when I was kind of going through a recovery period from the same thing, I realized that God was trying to do a work in my life, and I was working on my own thing. All crashes, of course. But I had in my journal, I will not be a Pharisee. I will not be a Pharisee. I will not be a Pharisee. Because I had just lived my life as a hypocrite, just outwardly one way, inwardly another way. And Jesus says in this parable, the house built by that foolish man, it didn't just fall. It didn't just take a hit. I mean, it fell with a crash. And if you've ever experienced that in your life, you know that that is genuinely what it feels like. We feel that crash, whether it's this relationship that we idolized crumbles, our ambitions aren't working out, and our pride takes this big hit, a secret gets exposed, our health fails, our reputation takes a hit. Suddenly, all the things that we were really building our security on disappears, and you just feel that crash, and you feel that sense of that existential crisis of, why am I here? Where does my peace come from? Where does that longing come from? And there's this flailing that happens. And the most incredible news about this, the promise with this, is that sometimes if you are willing to wake up and assess the damage, the absolute best thing that can happen to you in your life is that collapse. Because it doesn't mean it's the end of your story. It means that this is an opportunity to rebuild and rebuild right and have a testimony like what Kylie was sharing up here of going back to God and finding him authentically. And I'm willing to bet that the wisest people you know, the people that you call when you're in crisis or you want to know, please, I need help, somebody give me advice, somebody pray for me, those people were not born little baby Yodas, okay? They did not just come into the world with wisdom. They had to learn through experience and probably trial and probably tragedy. And the best advice that a wise person can give you will often come from their worst failures. And so if you are facing what feels like failure of the last few chapters of your life, or maybe it feels like your whole life so far and you've got to restart, know that you're just a future wise person. You might be identifying with Aaron. You're like, give me one of them foolish shirts. That is me. But this is the beginning of your chapter of being able to do this in a way that is wise and that is good. And there is nothing that Jesus Christ cannot restore. There's no life that he is not capable of rebuilding. So there is always hope beyond the crash.
Yeah, and maybe you don't know exactly what your foundation looks like or how sturdy it is. Maybe you just haven't been tested enough lately.
Yeah, sometimes we just coast, right? There's a reason we get so far thinking that everything's good and being so secure in the things that we've built because life just hasn't got hard enough. We haven't kind of been in that crushing and in that testing. But here's the thing, here's the promise. The storm absolutely is coming. There is no matter of if, but it's only a matter of when. And in Jesus' parable, that storm hits both houses. There is no avoiding it. There is no being good enough, righteous enough, perfect enough, having it so together that you won't be tested, that you won't be hit by hard things in life. And the thing about storms is this: storms reveal your foundation. The storm is not the thing that destroys it and ruins it. It's not the storm's fault if things fall apart. Storms simply reveal what the foundation was to begin with. And walking through a life with Jesus, maybe you've been a really wise builder and you have tried your best to walk alongside him. That does not make us exempt from the storms of life. I was reading last night and just thinking about Mary and God sending these angels to give her this promise and let her know she's so highly favored and she's going to be carrying the Son of God. And then after Jesus is born, they take him to the temple to be dedicated, and Simeon looks at her and says, "And a sword is going to pierce your soul." Like, carrying Jesus with us does not mean that we get this perfect life that doesn't have scars. And Aaron made this point as we were talking earlier. The storm doesn't knock down the wise person's house, but Jesus doesn't say that they didn't lose some shingles or get some scars or some damage from that. So some of us are just getting discouraged maybe because you're feeling the hit of life and it's taking a toll, and that is going to happen. But what is also happening is below the surface, that foundation that you've built on Jesus has not changed. It has not swayed one bit, and that is going to give you the strength that you need, the comfort that you need, the power that you need to fix up that house after it gets hit by the hard stuff.
To be clear, though, what you're saying, I just want to make sure, because if I'm going to take the time to become a wise builder, I want to make sure that you're telling me that even if I build on the right foundation, the storm will still come.
Absolutely.
The house will still take a beating.
Yep.
But it won't fall.
It won't fall.
Okay, so I want to be clear that just building on the foundation does not mean nothing's going to happen.
Right.
You don't have to look any further than Paul and the disciples and others in the early New Testament church who were martyred and persecuted for their faith.
Yep. It's a promise. mean, it is a sure promise that he says, take up the cross and follow me. We're not walking into some life of bliss, a life without testing, a life without suffering. Even Jesus, being this man of sorrows and being, pierced and setting this example of a life that is built on the most ultimate foundation, but it's just not an easy life.
I've seen this kind of foundation in more than one kind of storm. I've had a lot of life to live already. And I remember a couple from our church who lost their business almost overnight. Years of hard work vanished in a matter of weeks. The grief was real, but so was their peace. And I couldn't understand it. And they told me, we never built our security on this business. We built our security on Jesus. The business was a blessing, but he's the foundation, and that hasn't changed. And then there was a man in our congregation who'd been diagnosed with cancer. For years he had battled, the prognosis was serious, but his words stayed with me. He said, this diagnosis doesn't get to decide who's my foundation. I belonged to Jesus before this, and I belong to him now. Both stories bring to mind for me Habakkuk 3. It says, though the fig tree should not blossom, nor fruit be on the vines, the produce of the olive fail, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will take joy in the God of my salvation. So when I don't have enough food, when my house is destroyed, when my life is in shambles, when my children are wrecked, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will take joy in the God of my salvation. So what I'm hearing him say is that no matter what, if your foundation is strong, it cannot be rocked by those things if you are built in the right way. That truth is echoed in Psalm 46 when he says, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. By the way, why would I need a present help in trouble if trouble wasn't coming? Sounds like an imminent promise. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth gives way, though the mountains be moved into the heart of the sea. So even if the earth ends, my faith and my foundation stands. The storm looked different in each case. One financial, one physical. You have your own storm. You know what they look like. Some of you are being battered by them right now. But the result was the same. The house shook, yet it stood because it was on the rock.
And that storm revealed, it revealed the state of both houses, saying, this is the one that was built on the rock and stood, and this is the one that was on the sand. And if you are in a moment right now where you feel like life has hit you really hard and you're going through that testing, this is the perfect opportunity to be real and ask those questions. What have I been building on? Has my life been built on sand to the point where I am completely falling apart? My faith is falling apart. The things of my soul are not on steady ground right now. Or was I building on the rock this whole time? You get to ask those questions, and the Lord has this way of revealing the state of our souls to us. How many of you are familiar with the word cornerstone? Do you know what that means?
I want to, just something I heard there, though. What I heard you say then is storms don't ruin the foundation.
Right. They reveal
They just
them.
reveal it.
Yep.
And I think that's the problem that I see is people get that storm, then they start to blame God because the foundation wasn't there and trusting in all-powerful, all-knowing God. And instead of them, they blame the foundation being ruined by it instead of it revealing that the foundation just wasn't there. Is that?
Right, yeah, don't blame the storm. We have to look at ourselves and say, were we equipped for this when God has offered us all of heaven and the ability to be equipped?
It's a hard truth to swallow, though, for a lot of people.
It is. It totally is. But when we talk about, I mentioned the word cornerstone. I want to read you the definition of this. My first time really sitting with this word was this week, and I read this online. It says, the cornerstone is the first stone laid in the construction of a building's foundation, often marking the beginning of the structure and serving as a reference point for all subsequent stones. So every decision you've made in your life has been patterned after one initial reference point. Whatever our motivation is, whatever the thing is that is driving us and that we've tethered ourselves to, it creates this line of habits and behaviors that become our character and our personality. And Jesus has pointed out over and over this whole summer, as we've listened to his sermon, he has pointed out that we cannot have more than one master. There cannot be more than one anchor to the house. So either that cornerstone is Jesus Christ or itself. It's either Jesus or it's our ambition. It's either Jesus or the way we want to do things. It's either Jesus or money, Jesus or relationships. It cannot be both. And so we have to examine, what is it that has been informing the way we've built this foundation? What is the cornerstone? And this is a major spoiler alert if you don't know this, but Jesus is the ultimate cornerstone. It does not get better, more powerful, more stable, more secure, more lasting than Jesus Christ. Religion cannot hold a candle to him. Our own morality cannot do it. Our way, our good intentions, none of those things are a strong enough cornerstone upon which to build our lives. It has to be Jesus every time.
And honestly, when the storms hit, and I've had this experience in personal, professional, and other places, you really see what people are made of.
Yeah.
Because again, they can make the house look however they want, but when that storm hits, you see who has integrity. You see who's willing to cut corners. You see who's willing to stand by you. You see who's willing to sacrifice you in search of their own accomplishments. And I've lived what Rachel mentioned earlier. It's never too late to rebuild. I've been there. I've had seasons where God had to take me back to the foundations and start over. Parts of my life had to come down. My pride need to be in control. My addiction to other people's approval. Those things felt safe at the time, but they were just a weak scaffolding. And when they came down, it hurt. But every time I've surrendered, Jesus has met me, not with condemnation, but with compassion. Not with rejection, but with restoration. In Psalm 34, the psalmist says, "The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit." That's been my story. And the rebuilding hasn't been instant. It's been brick by brick by brick of trust, brick by brick of obedience, brick by brick of learning to rest in him, and slowly I've discovered something I now know to be true. The foundation really does hold. 1 Peter 2, it says, "Behold, I am laying in Zion a stone, a cornerstone chosen and precious, and whoever believes in him will not be put to shame." I've staked my life on that promise, and I have found it to be unshakable. So let's bring this home. What are you building your life on? Is your peace tied to your job, your family, your image? Or is it rooted in the one who never changes? All of those things are going to change for the good and bad. Things are going to come good, things are going to come bad. Life is going to have up and life is going to have down, but he never changes. If your foundation is built on the things that change, you will find yourself collapsing when they do. Because 1 Corinthians 3 says, "For no one can lay a foundation other than that which is laid, which is Jesus Christ." If it's not him, it doesn't hold.
And this is what Jesus leaves us with here at the end of this Sermon on the Mount. And of course, as teaching team members, we're very interested in the way, how is Jesus going to wrap up this sermon? You know, like, how's he going to close his service, right? And he doesn't do it with a prayer or a song. He leaves the ball in our court. He leaves us with a decision to make. What are you going to build upon? This is your decision. I have given you free will. You get to choose what you're going to do with everything that you've heard. And this is the decision that we're left with. We've spent this whole summer hearing Jesus preach. Yes, the teaching team, we've had our own comments and our interpretations, but we have read the words of Jesus and received the words of Jesus all summer. And so Jesus is asking us what he asked in Luke chapter 6. Are you going to call me Lord, Lord, and not do what I tell you? Are you going to be the foolish one who's received all of this and heard it and thought, yeah, that's good, maybe even said amen a couple times or really thought about it a couple times at dinner, and then just walk away and not be changed by what we've heard from him? Or are we going to begin to build to build our lives and our homes and our families on these truths that we have heard from Jesus. In Luke chapter 13, there are all these people. Jesus talks about people coming to him and saying, you taught in our streets. We heard you preach. We ate with you. We sat with you. We were in your presence. And Jesus says, I don't know you. We never had a relationship. And this is the moment where it all becomes real, where we get to say, I choose to be built into the very image of Christ. I want to be transformed. I want to live what I've heard from him. I'm going to allow myself to be challenged by it. And I just want to read to you real fast. This is one of my favorite verses in the entire Bible. This promise that we have, if we are willing to do that work, just brick by brick, it says, we all, with unveiled face, beholding as in a mirror the glory of the Lord, are being transformed into the same image from glory to glory, just as by the Spirit of the Lord. This is the reason that God gave us Jesus, was so that we, without having to be like the Old Testament saints who could not even look upon God, there had to be the veil separating them, we get to go full face into the presence of God, and we get to say, God, I want to do what you say. I want to be like you. And he says that his Spirit will transform us into his image, like looking in a mirror from glory to glory. We will be like him. And this is not by might or strength, but by the Spirit of God. And if you're in this place today and it's all so overwhelming, this idea of building and radically changing your life, you're saying, it just sounds like so much work. And listen, I've got a big mess here. I've made a mess of my life that I'm ashamed of. I can't go into the presence of God and say, Lord, let me build something awesome out of my life. How can I ask him that? This is the glory of the gospel, that we don't have a God who is a designer sitting on high watching us mess up the building of this chair so someone will fall down. He said, I know they can't do this themselves. So he came in flesh, born of a virgin, died on the cross, rose from the grave. And do you know what Jesus' trade was when he was here? What he did for professionally? He was a carpenter. He loves to build good things with us, even out of our mess. And so if you're in a chapter of your life and you're looking over it all and you're like, this is a mess. No, he's not afraid to get his hands dirty. He's not afraid of the mess. He's ready to help you build something good and solid and lasting and holy and God-glorifying right now, today. So would you all just stand with us? In a couple moments, you're going to have some time to reflect, take communion. Thank you for giving us a few extra minutes with us today. This is important. This is the most important part of the service. This is where you get to decide what you're going to do with Jesus. Are you going to walk with him? Are you going to build with him? Are you going to take that nail-scarred hand and say, Lord, help me. I don't know if I have the strength to obey you, but I want to try. I'm willing to lay one brick, make one commitment, one rededication, one step in your direction today. I'm willing, Lord. And Aaron's going to pray in a minute. And at all of these doors, we have the elements of communion if you'd like to take that. And just remember what the cross of Jesus represents. A symbol of death now means life. So that means anything is possible. You are able to do above and beyond all you could ever ask or think, because the one who is in you knows how to do that. So we're going to pray, and this is your time to ask, what have I built on? How can I build differently? How can I be more like Jesus today?
Father, we thank you for your word. We thank you that it provides a blueprint. It gives us the directions and instructions. And as you stood on the mountain that day and shared with others the truth that still rings out today, let it sink into our minds. All of the things that you shared. And Lord, today, these folks have heard, we have heard your words in the red letters, speaking to your people. Lord, today I hope that we will have people who will choose to build on the right foundation. And if they are not building, that they'd be willing to go through the pain of bringing down those walls and rebuilding with the right foundation so that when the storm comes, they can have the peace that passes all understanding, knowing no matter what happens, that house will stand because of their faith in you. God, as we remember your sacrifice on the cross, as we think about our own lives, when we consider where we are today, where our house is being built, what the foundation looks like, and make a change if that is needed. For it's in your name we pray. Amen.